Hey there, Dango Stu here. Today's video is about inspecting and servicing an older motor that's new to you and is proudly sponsored by marineengine.com. This will probably end up being a bit of a series of videos, and we're going to be doing this on the Johnson 30 that I've had lying around the workshop for a while. The idea here is that you've either bought or inherited an old boat, maybe it's a boat that hasn't been run for a while, and you're really trying to get it up and running. We're going to start this series by just having a good look at this outboard. I've seen the outboard before in the past. It had a lot of problems. The owners of this outboard have actually bought themselves a new outboard. So it's either kind of be destined for the rubbish tip or see if we can get it going again. It's one of those outboards that would take a lot more money to get running again properly than it's worth if you're not doing it yourself. But once you're doing it yourself, most outboards are recoverable. What we're going to do is start by just inspecting the outboard. We'll probably pull it apart as a part of that inspection, see what parts we need to order, and then we'll go from there. Before we do that though, another viewer t-shirt photo. This one is Steve Gozy from Cudjoe Key in Florida. So thanks, Steve. I've got a video coming out soon on buying a second-hand boat, but this video is more coming from the angle that you've already got the motor. It's either yours and it hasn't run for a while, or perhaps you've been given it or inherited it, whatever it is, and you're really looking at it saying, how do I get from this point to having the boat running? We did a little bit of detective work on the serial number, thanks to a local Evinrude dealer down the road, and he said that he found a serial number similar to this Johnson, which was from 1994, so it was within, so many numbers of it. And apparently, regardless of model, they're all just done sequentially, so we're thinking this is a 94 outboard as well. I presume there was some sort of sticker on the bracket that told us the exact model number, but that's long gone. Obviously that's important information to have, because if you're looking to track down a service manual for it, which I highly recommend if you are going to be doing a lot of work to any outboard, and also for ordering parts. Alright, let's go over now and just have a quick look over the powerhead and the leg, because I think it can't beat a brief visual inspection to sort of let you know what you're up against. We'll start at the front here. So first off the bat, you're kind of looking for completeness. We've got some sort of earth strap here that's going to nowhere, so we have to figure that out. The airbox is missing off the front of the carburetor here, so that's something we're probably going to need to source as well. Coming around the side here, straight away you can see this wire has been pulled out of the connector here, so there's obviously some issues with the wiring. Wiring where you've either got a pulled out missing connection or the insulation's broken and is touching another metal part of the outboard, they can be really tricky problems to find. So by giving it all a thorough visual inspection, you can save yourself a lot of headache later on. With the fuel pump, I'd be looking for leaks in the hose, leaks from the gaskets, all that kind of thing. Coils, we can do some tests on down the track, so we'll probably do some resistance tests on the coils. We can also have a look at the spark plugs in here and get a sense of the condition, do compression tests, all that kind of stuff. Looks like the thermostat for this outboard is under this water jacket cover. It's probably another thing I'd replace as a matter of course, just to make sure it's not seized up, particularly if it hasn't been moving for a while. Here's an example of a wire that's actually a main positive, and the insulation's broken there, so that could be a problem if we're blowing fuses, shorting, whatever. Solenoid, we can test that easy enough. And then starter, looks a little manky, a bit rusty. Once again, could be a voltage drop over bad connections like this. And it's not seized, which is good, but may not have high compression either. Down here we can see the trim pins being replaced with some sort of gal bolt, which isn't ideal. The grill here is broken a bit as well. Bit of meat left on the anode. Props missing a bit. Skegs in one piece. So as you can see, a few issues, but nothing that can't be fixed. So the first decision I think you always need to make is, am I even going to start trying to fix this outboard, or am I going to just part it out? The first thing to do with this outboard is take the gearbox off. And the reason for that is I want to go on and do some compression tests to make sure this outboard's worth putting some time and effort into, but I don't want to turn the water pump. The reason I don't want to turn the water pump is I don't know what condition the impeller's in, I don't know how old it is, I don't know how long it's been sitting still. That impeller might be really easy to take the gearbox off, pull it, put a new one in, but if I try and run it first, go, oh, it's got no water, I better replace it, whatever, there's a chance that old brittle impeller will actually break up and bits of it will go through the cooling system. And that's an absolute nightmare. You can end up having to pull the head off, pull the head apart to get these little bits of impeller out. So I'd much rather take that gearbox off, get that pump away before I even begin turning the motor over for the first time. Bits of impeller aren't likely to go through the cooling system when you don't have water going through it, so if you're just running the impeller dry, but that's not a great thing either, so let's just take it off. Before I take the gearbox off, I'm just going to drain the oil out of it. Once again, when we see the condition of the oil, it'll tell us something else. Are the seals good? Are they bad? That drain plug's pretty stuck. I'm just going to put an impact driver, see if we can shift it. Top was quite stuck too. One thing I need to change about this stand is maybe put a brace here and a brace at the back. The brace at the moment here is almost exactly under where the oil comes out on a lot of outboards. Bit of a design fault. Pretty much pure water was coming out on the bottom. You can still see here just water dripping and a bit of oil floating on top. So we've obviously got some seal work to do as well. You can see it's not really emulsified because it obviously hasn't been run for a while, so even if it was, it seems to have separated back out again. We'll take this prop off while the oil keeps draining. With these split pins, I just grab them with some diagonal cutters, pinch them, and then pivot against the nut to sort of lever them out. Be careful if you are grabbing props like that with a rag or whatever. If the nut doesn't come on, you can spin the prop, cut your hand. This thrust washer looks pretty gnarly, and obviously you can see dust falling off here, so it's pretty dry too. Let's get a pry bar in there. No obvious signs of fishing line or anything, but we'll have to do a pressure test to figure out where that leak is. Next thing I'm going to do is take what's left of this intake grill off so we can get to the shift linkage inside here. There's a couple of Phillips heads, one on this side that goes through this one and into the other side, and one on the other side, down low, that holds the two grills on. So I think we'll order some replacements for those as well. Not looking too healthy. This is our shift linkage now that we need to undo using a couple of spanners. I'm just going to brush a little bit of this corrosion and some of these barnacles off it. Once you've got this collar undone, you can lift it up and then undo this little section here. It's a little sort of nylon wedge that stops it coming off, because we need to drop this all the way off in order to let this rod here slide up through the gearbox. So this is the little tapered keeper. It splits along one edge, so you can just open it up and take it off. Once you've got that little keeper off, the collar will just slide off. Now we've got 4 bolts here to each side and one up here. Alright, now we've got the gearbox off, let's go ahead and do those compression tests. To do these compression tests, I'm just putting a jump starter straight onto the starter motor. Bottom cylinder's 110, so not too bad. Yeah, similar, sort of 105, not too bad. When you do compression tests like that on an outboard with the HT leads disconnected, it's best if you just pull the lanyard out. That way you disable the ignition and you won't get spark going through the coils, which will either damage the coil or cause spark, and if there's fuel in the cowling or whatever, you can get a fire. I had the whole forward control disconnected, which probably means it did have spark, so my bad, but you get the idea. The compression test results were reasonably high and reasonably close to each other, so that's a good sign. It means we haven't hit anything that's made me say, let's just stop here and not put any time or money into this outboard. I'll put this up in the lower unit stand now and we'll just have a look at the water pump, see what condition it's in, see what we need to order. Looks like there's 5/16 bolts holding this on. Looks like the whole drive shaft comes out easily on this model. So here's the impeller, no broken blades, and that's awesome because what we don't want is to see broken blades and not know where they are. This gives us a fair bit of confidence now that we can just put a new impeller in and know we're not going to have bits of old impeller blocking up the cooling system. Just have a look at this base plate. What's left of its gasket. So we'll be reordering the gasket for the bottom here. Under the base plate, looks like there's some oil seals, which I'll replace while we're here. I think it's fair to say that was pretty stuck. A lot of salt and sort of sand or maybe just an aluminium corrosion in here. What I'm going to do is look at a parts diagram to see what happens next. Looks like there's a bearing under there and then maybe this is a bit of a bushing rather than oil seal. So I'll look into that before I pull that out. That's about as far as we're going to get with this outboard today because I'm going to need to order some more parts. But hopefully it gives you an idea of the general approach I would take to an older outboard that I didn't really know the history of. I could definitely have checked for spark as well when I was testing the compression, but I don't consider no spark as much of a showstopper. You know, you can swap a coil out pretty easily and generally you're kind of back in action. If it had zero compression and it needed new rings, new pistons, machining to sort of go to oversized pistons, etc., that would be more of an issue in my mind. What I'm going to do now though is we're going to order all the bits we need for the water pump. I'll also order the air box for the front of the carburetor because that's missing entirely. And I'll just pop all these bits in a Ziploc bag so I don't lose any of them. When you're doing a project like this, I think it's really good just to bag everything up as you go. You could end up taking this completely apart, in which case it's nice to be able to put the lower unit back together, go to a single bag and go, right, this is all the lower unit hardware, everything I need's in there, without having to figure out, oh, is that a bolt from the Powerhead, whatever. Just keeps them grouped and stops them getting lost. So the parts I'm going to order is the air box for the front of the carburetor. I'll also ultimately probably be going through the carburetor, going through the prime system, going through the fuel pump. So we'll need kits for all of that. At the impeller side, we're going to need the main sealing O-ring. There's an O-ring up here. This is a seal for the shift linkage, so we'll need all that. With these base plates, they get worn. You can feel there's quite a groove here now. So we'll get a new base plate, get a new gasket, get a new impeller, do the whole water pump as well. We're also going to need oil seals. I didn't pressure test that to find out which oil seal was bad, but we've got our drive shaft oil seal out. We'll do the prop shaft oil seal because it's always a prime candidate, and we're doing the shift linkage oil seal as well. That way we can trust the gearbox completely. On another note, you may be wondering what's happening with the boat build. Turns out the two local suppliers that I get wood from are both out of marine ply at the moment, so I couldn't get any more ply to push on with that project, but when that arrives we will get going. What I'll probably try and do is keep the videos on the boat building and sort of interleave them with work on this Johnson, just to keep a bit of variety there as well. Alright, well take care and I'll catch you soon. See ya.